I'm Josh.
And I'm Jen. Welcome to the Gospel Shape Family Podcast.
Each episode brings biblical wisdom and practical conversations on parenting, marriage, and family. And we discuss how to disciple the next generation with a biblical worldview.
Whether you're raising children, shepherding a church, or longing to build a legacy of faith in your home, this podcast is for you.
Join us as we explore how to shape hearts, homes, and churches around the gospel, one conversation at a time.
Hey, friends. Welcome back to the Gospel Shape Family Podcast. Well, today we're talking about discipling our children and using great books as a tool for discipling them. So helping them to grow closer to Christ. So this has been a key component for our family. It's been something that we have intentionally done with our own kids in terms of like using books and reading together and creating a family culture, instilling biblical values, um, you know, creating some lasting memories, and just providing opportunities to help our kids grow closer to the Lord, using books as a method. So
Mhm.
really, for every family, using books should be a tool in your toolbox. It should be a part of your family plan to help your children grow closer to Christ, to help them develop a biblical worldview. And so we're going to talk a little bit about today, unpack it. What does it look like to help our kids become godly, mature, wise young people, and using books as a strategic method to do that?
Yeah, that's great. So, Jen, talk to us about, we talk about great
Great
books.
books.
What is the greatest book that we need as the foundation here?
The greatest book of all time. I was gonna say the
It's
greatest of
true.
all time. The GOAT book is the Bible. The greatest book of all time is the Bible. It's the inspired word of God. And it's sold billions of copies. So even if you're not even looking at like the number of copies sold, the Bible is transformative. It is the word of God. And it's not by mistake that the Lord chose to communicate to us using a book.
Mm,
And so, as people who are believers in Jesus Christ, it's important that we use his methods. And so, using a book is the way to go. So,
totally.
that's how he chose to communicate with us. And so, the best resources resonate with the gospel that are true. They're just true stories, and they help us to gaze towards heaven, to look towards Him, and to just reflect what He's given us in the GOAT book, which is the Bible.
Yeah, so Tolkien, when he was a believer, so Tolkien and,
J.R.R. Tolkien.
yeah, J.R.R. Tolkien and Lewis, they both taught at Oxford and different colleges at
Mhm.
Oxford. When Lewis wasn't a believer yet, um, Tolkien was talking to Lewis about the impact of the Bible on
Mhm.
all other books.
Yep.
And literally Tolkien said this, quoted this. He said, "The reason all the stories are the same is because there is a story underneath
Yep.
every story." So think about like the best stories that we love as individuals and families, like Aslan in the Chronicles of Narnia and Frodo in the Lord of the Rings
Mhm.
and Janner in the Wingfeather Saga.
Mhm.
Why do those resonate so powerfully? And it's partially because they're Christ figures whose story points to
Yep.
the most wonderful story. And so, we want to utilize the Bible as an excellent book. It gives our kids this foundation that they need for a deep and lasting foundation.
Mhm.
And so, make sure as we're talking about great books that this is the foundation, the greatest book.
Yep.
This they all they it doesn't take the place of the Bible. Great books don't take the place of the Bible.
Yep.
So impress that on your kids' hearts.
Yeah. And before our kids can really even dive in and, learn those things, to see how great literature reflects the Bible, to see how the characters are, what's going on in them, our kids need to have a really great foundation of knowing the Bible. So, as we start with the Bible, we teach our children, we read it to them, we teach them the great stories of the Bible, we teach them to be biblically literate, to understand, the stories of the Old Testament and the lessons in the Proverbs and in the poetry and the stories of Christ and the New Testament and the early church and the prophecy that we see in Revelation, and we see the things that are yet to come. And so when we give our kids the foundation of biblical literacy, then what we find is that all other books are read in light of that book. And so there are so many riches there, but it all starts with a foundation that comes from God's word.
Yep. Yeah, so make scripture reading a routine in your home
Hmm.
as kind of the start. That's a place to start.
Yeah.
All right, so what makes a book great? We
What
talked
makes
about
it
great
great?
books. This is a fun conversation. We could
Yep.
probably state a ton of things. I once heard John Piper. So John Piper lives here in the Minneapolis area, not far from
Hmm.
us. And we were at Bethlehem, Bethlehem Church, Bethlehem College,
College. Yeah.
and John was talking about education
Yep.
because they teach the greatest books at Bethlehem College,
Mhm.
and John made a really insightful comment that has stuck with me that I really appreciate. He said this. He said, "Read great books in light of the greatest book
Yeah.
for the sake of the Great Commission."
Yeah.
And so there's a purpose to why we're reading. We talked about reading books in light of the greatest book, but there's a purpose in reading for the Great Commission. They are it's discipleship oriented,
Yeah.
and to go and make disciples, to replicate, reproduce, to multiply, not only growing in maturity ourselves, but we want to see that for us to multiply into others. So, what makes a great book? I think we have about 5 reasons. We probably could make this list really long,
Mhm.
but the first reason is that great books help us to set our affection on Christ
Yeah.
and to accomplish God's purpose in our life. So, great books, they have substance. They're not just entertainment value. They're tools that really shape character and stir the imagination. They teach our
Mhm.
children to think, and they encourage integrity and morality.
Mhm.
Every book, I love reading Louis L'Amour. We've got whole bookshelves of Louis L'Amour.
Uh-huh.
Louis doesn't have in them per se like biblical principles that would be laid out, but what I love about a Louis L'Amour story is there's a clear sense of right and wrong. There's a morality that's
Yeah.
taught even in a Louis L'Amour. If you're
Yeah.
not familiar with Louis L'Amour, they're Western novels, and they all have a kind of the same template and pattern. But good always wins and bad always loses
Yeah.
In a Louis L'Amour novel. And so, interestingly, like my boys love Louis L'Amour as well.
Mhm.
What ends up happening is you put yourself as a when you're hearing this read, and this is true of any children's story or any adult story, you're going to put yourself in the story as one of the characters. Usually, we always make ourselves the hero, or you're never the villain.
Main character energy.
Yeah, you're always the hero, and you always are forced with moral dilemmas. Like, what would
Yeah.
I do in this instance? And in that, stories that even are not stating a principle, a biblical principle, they're teaching a morality, they're teaching a moral code to our
Yeah.
kids. And so we want to choose books even like the Louis L'Amour series they're teaching our kids a morality. Now that morality, I don't know if Louis was a Christian, Louis L'Amour. I
I don't
won't
know.
say, but he clearly is influenced by Christian morality. He grew up in a country at a time when there was a Christian culture that
Yeah.
was just the norm, and that has made its way into these books. And so it sets our affection on what is good, right, and true, and that's a big piece of it.
And two, I mean, it helps our kids and us to see, when I say it, I mean books, helps us to see both the good and the bad, right? And
Mhm.
so, we can read, I don't know why Anne of Green Gables came to my mind as we're sitting here, but like Anne Shirley, and she had quite the personality, and how did she treat Gilbert? Terribly. I think she treated him terribly. And so, like you see the character flaws and both the good and the redeeming, like in the Louis L'Amour, and maybe what's not always so redeeming. But when you give your kids, like we just said, that filter, that foundation of the Bible, right? That's what you're gonna compare the character qualities of your characters to.
Mm,
It's good. It's good.
yep.
Well, the next one is that great books expand our vision and they alter our lives. So I'm going to read you a quote from Alan Bloom. He's the author of this book called The Closing of the American Mind. And he says this: the failure to read good books both enfeebles the vision and strengthens our most fatal tendency, which is the belief that here and now is all there is. So, great books help us to learn from those who've come before us. They help us to see the bigger picture. They help us to live light in life of eternity and really just to look up and to see what's going on more than around what's in our own little bubble.
Yep. Number three, the best books reflect real life. And you were kind of just touching on this.
Yeah.
So the really great books, they resonate with us because they're authentic to what happens that we
Yeah.
experience in our life, which means the best books, they contain heartache and they contain sadness, they
Mhm.
contain death, they contain sin, they contain problems.
Mhm.
And they also have wonderful things like celebration and joy and
Yeah.
life and happy endings and salvation. They help us to savor those great things, but
Mhm.
also to understand pain. And that's partially why they resonate because we've all been in those various different places. So we want books that are authentic to life, and they become something that can captivate the imagination of a reader. Proverbs 25:11 says, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver." And so, a really great author that is able to craft words to stir the heart, to awaken emotion, to subtly communicate truth, that's a gift.
Mhm.
And that is not easy to do with both the spoken or the written word. And so, those books that can do that they're just a gem.
Yep, I would agree. The next reason is that great books have stood the test of time. And there are some books that you just keep coming back to. Those are the books that, span the generations that have been around for, many, many decades, sometimes, even 100 years. But a book that has been on the shelf a long time, that has been read through the generations, is because it's a good book. And so if you're not sure where to start, find something old and go back to it because there's a reason that has been cherished for so long. And I remember, gosh, I would say maybe even 15 years ago, I decided, well, there's all these old books. Like I was looking for another book to read and I was like, I'm just going to start reading some of the old books that I had never read before. I remember reading like Jane Eyre and
Yep.
I don't know, there was a whole big stack of them that I went through that summer and I was like, I'm literally only going to choose books because they're old. Like forget the genre. But they all ended up being so good, and that's why they're so good. That's why they're so well known is because, they have stood the test of time.
Yeah. I I have made it a priority to try to keep at least one classic in the rotation of what I'm reading,
Yeah.
for that very
Yeah.
reason. So, what else makes a great book? If your children beg you to read another chapter
Yep.
and they don't want you to put it down, like, "Please,
Yeah.
please read another one."
Yeah.
If you're reading a book and you're like, I don't know if I like this, or it's just not a great book, you
Yep.
know what? We're going to give you the freedom. You can put it
You
down.
don't have to
You don't
finish it.
have to finish a book.
Nope.
You can even throw it away
Yep.
because a bad book is a big thief, and there
Yeah,
are too many great ones out there to waste your time on bad
I
ones.
agree.
So get rid of the ones that aren't worth reading. And the great ones, of course, you'll want to come back to again and again. The last one we're going to say, the great mark of a great book is when we catch our children reading that book late into the night,
Yep,
even when they have been told to go to bed,
yep.
and they're like, their act of rebellion is
Is just
to
to
like,
read.
I'm going to keep reading even though I'm not supposed to.
So rebellious.
Uh, you get the
I
flashlight
used to totally do that when I was a kid,
with the
flashlight
book
it.
under the cover, whatever, to like, they're like that's rebellious children oftentimes in our household. But it takes time and energy to find the best books, and it is
Mhm.
worth the effort. And you put great books in front of your kids,
Yeah.
and they will get hooked. They will want to read. They will be in search of the next one. And so if you
Mhm.
find good books, you put them into their hands. Guess what they're going to do? If they trust you with those books, when you put a great doctrine, theology, apologetics, worldview book in
Mhm.
their hands, they're going to say, I trust you because you put some awesome books. I'm going to trust you with this as
Yeah.
well.
Yep. Yeah, I used to call that book trust, like book trust. You establish a pattern of trust with your kids. And really, and we can talk about this, but like how do you get your child to read books? Yeah, I can come back to that. But so what about screens? So if you are in a screen dilemma in your home right now, if you're sick of it, if you're tired of saying put away the iPad and turn off the TV, if you're sick of monitoring your kids' screen time, um, great books can replace screens. So make a big stack of books, put it in front of them. You will see just amazing, amazing things from your kids. And really, a lot of parents will say, like, oh, well, how do you get your kids to even start reading? And I would say the number one thing is just to model it for your children. Model what it looks like to sit down and open a book and make yourself a drink and just like literally chill with the book. And your kids will emulate that. And so, in the same way, if you're just scrolling your iPad or if you chill out in front of the TV, your kids are going to do that alongside you. But if you make the book a part of your routine, if you make the book a part of what you do, you reduce the allure of all the other things. And so there's just like you know, yeah, yeah. So there you go. So don't let screens replace books in your home. Do the opposite. Let your screens be or
Mm,
let your books
replace.
be the
Yeah.
replacement for your did I say that?
Yeah,
Let
you
your
got
books
it.
be the
You got it.
replacement for your
I
screens.
love what Roald Dahl says. He's, wrote, what did he write?
He wrote well, he's most famous known for Charlie and the Chocolate
Yeah.
Factory. I think his best one is Matilda, though.
He's got a ton of
Yeah,
like awesome, like literally he's got tons.
a
But
ton.
Roald Dahl, he eloquently states this. He says, so please, oh please, we beg, we pray, go throw your TV set away, and in its place you can install a lovely bookshelf on the wall. Then fill the shelves with lots of books.
Lots of books.
He's kind of getting at this replace books with
He was like, his writing, it's geared for kids, but it's kinda got, like sometimes it can be, like, a little dark or, like, but he can be, like, kind of funny, he's so funny, but, like, my favorite is, like, there's this scene that he wrote in the book Matilda, where it's, like, Matilda who's, like, bookish and smart and, like, just a delight, and then I forget if it was, like, her stepmom or somebody. Well, who was the character? But she's like, "You chose books. I chose looks." And then she's like, "Books, looks." And then it's like but then at the end of the book, her looks get, like, destroyed,
yeah.
and Matilda's
And
like,
Matilda's got the books.
"I chose books." So, yeah, it's
There we go.
hilarious. Like, Roald Dahl is full of, like, bookish humor
Humor.
in his books, so that's fun.
And then Gladys Hunt, there's a great book called Honey for a Child's Heart, that's a book about books, right? Like
Yeah.
it's got a list of a million different, like if you're looking like, what are great books that I should buy for my kids to read?
Yeah.
You could literally go buy the book Honey for a Child's Heart and it lists books for you.
It's great.
It's a
And
great
they have
book.
a nice little summary, and I think in that one, they're grouped by age and then
Yeah.
category. There's, like, fiction
Yeah,
categories too,
so there's
yeah.
great ones. We just had Corey Johnson
Yeah,
on a couple of episodes ago, and she has a million book list too.
on
There's
her website, Good Book
Good Book
Mom.
Mom. There's
Yeah,
others out there like that.
Lexi, Good Book
Lexi,
Hunt.
Good Book Hunt. They're all great places to find some books.
Yeah.
But Gladys Hunt from A Honey for a Child's Heart, she states this: if television is more important to parents than books, the children will likely choose the same. The allurement of the screen is no small thing, but television, for the most part, has betrayed its potential. It is responsible for dumbing down and coarsening the fabric of our society. It keeps pushing at the edge of questionable behavior, and in many homes is a monster in the living room.
Mhm.
All chairs facing the screen, awaiting the next available amusement.
Yeah. That's
That's
kinda
true.
harsh,
That's
but it's
right.
true.
It is
Every
kind
room
of
is
harsh,
like
but
it's
yeah.
all focused around the television, your whole room.
Yep.
A lot of living rooms. Yep.
So books can replace screens, and it's a battle you got to fight and got
You
to keep
you gotta
fighting.
put it, and
Got to
it's
fight it.
worth it. It's totally worth it. And it's worth it too, like, we see it in our kids. Like, um, our kids love a book afternoon, like, if you would say to our kids, "We're gonna go to the beach and everybody's gonna bring a book," they would be like, "Whoop, whoop." Or if you said to our kids, "We're gonna go to a bookstore and everybody gets to choose one book," you would think that they, like, won the lottery. They're so excited about that. And so, yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
Let's take a break to thank Renew Nation, the sponsor of this podcast. If you've benefited from the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast, consider making a tax-deductible donation to Renew Nation today. Your generous donations make this podcast and our work to help children develop a biblical worldview possible. If you've enjoyed the episode, you can support us by leaving a review. This helps the podcast grow and reach more families. Now back to the show.
What advice if you're asking Josh and Jen, what advice would you give for reading books aloud? We think the best way to experience the best books is to read them aloud. And
Mhm.
so, whether a child's young, like 5 years old or 15, a great book will capture that whole age spectrum,
Yep.
capture their attention. And for those who think, well, I need a little kid book and a teenager book, or I need a boy book and then a girl book, I want you to consider the words of C.S. Lewis. He said this: a children's story which is enjoyed only by children is a bad children's
I
story.
agree.
The good ones last. And so great books, they transcend time. They transcend age, they transcend sex, and they can be read to the entire family.
Yeah.
Second, with this one, a parent is a child's best teacher, and great books read aloud are your best tool. They literally are like, next to the Bible, this is the best kind of curriculum that you can use for your children, if you want to call it that. We don't ever refer to it that with our kids.
Curriculum, the C word.
The C word, because you
Curriculum.
want to kill excitement faster than anything
Ugh.
else. Just say
Curriculum.
curriculum
Ugh.
or workbook.
Yeah.
Yes. But there are a few things more significant that a parent can do for a child or grandchild than read to them. And of course, as parents, our knowledge and our wisdom is limited. We can't know everything. And so we can invite Francis and Edith Schaefer
Love them.
into our living room.
Yep.
We can invite C.S. Lewis and George MacDonald into our house. Like,
Yep.
could you imagine if you could invite C.S. Lewis or Francis Schaeffer to come
Over.
sit in your living room for an evening with your kids, would you do it?
Of course.
Yes. Well, you can. And all you got to
I'd
do
clean up special day.
is open up his books and read a chapter, and
Mm.
you get
Yeah,
C.S.
that's true.
Lewis in your
It's
living
true.
room.
It's true.
And of course, that shapes the hearts and minds of our children. Research has found that reading a story gives a brain like this the similar kind of network connections as actually living through the experience yourself. And so it provides children and us a lot of what we long for just in story format, and as well as time with parents, which is what they long for with
Yeah.
one another. And then our kids, they just love stories. It's literally
They love
it
stories.
it we're built for that. And so harness that love, take advantage of that love. If kids don't love reading, it just means you haven't found the right books yet.
Yeah.
That's all that means. So children rarely stumble upon great books by themselves. They need to
Mhm.
be introduced to them, and you can do that through reading aloud.
Yeah. Well, and two, it's like God knew that when He gave us the Bible, right? He knew we love a story. I mean, He created us, right? But He knew we would love those stories. He knew that we would be like enamored with David and Goliath and how tall was he and where did those stones come from? And like He knew when He gave us the Bible that we would love the stories, that like we would just be enthralled by them. So it makes sense then that we love the stories that are woven and told as a reflection of him. So it's
Mhm.
great.
Yep.
Okay. So what about fairy tales and
Oh,
fantasy?
okay.
This is like I feel like kind of a hot button topic, like in Christian circles. Like my child wants to read a fantasy book, and should we let them? And everyone kind of leans in and grabs their popcorn and let's have the conversation. So uh, we would say that you should let your children read fantasy books. You should let them read fairy tales because, again, if you've given your children a distinctly biblical worldview and they understand the Bible, it's not fantasy is not going to give them a false impression of the world, but instead it's going to do the opposite. And so there's a quote from C.S. Lewis, and I'm going to read it for you guys. It says this. Fairyland, let me move my notes here. Fairyland arouses a longing for what he knows not what. It stirs and troubles him to his lifelong enrichment with the dim sense of something beyond his reach and far from the dulling or the emptying of the actual world, but it really gives a new dimension of depth. Chesterton says fairy tales do not tell children dragons exist. Children already know that dragons exist, but fairy tales tell children that the dragons can be defeated. And so, within fairy tales and within the fantasy books that we allow our children to read, the ones that we put in front of them, those books should uphold God's laws and the truth, the good conquers evil, and all of those things should hold true. Now, are there some fantasy books out there that are icky? Yes, of course. There are books in all genres that are not good. But when we draw a line and we say no fantasy and no fairy tales for our kids, then what we do is we deny them of the Narnias and the Hundred Acre Woods and of Beatrix Potter and Roald Dahl and even like Green Ember.
Mhm.
There's like that 100 Cupboard series. Holy guacamole. These are really good books. These are written by Christian authors. And really, they plant seeds of what's true and what's good and it's beautiful. And how does that interact with the world that we live in? And so, um, Christianity is enhanced when we read some fantasy.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, you know, y- read what your kids are reading when it comes to fantasy. I would say, especially in the category of like young adult, if you were going to go to like Barnes and Noble right now and you would walk into what's called like the young adult YA section, there is a lot of fantasy in there. And I would say that goes beyond fairy tales, fantasy books that are very dark. They deal with, like blood and sexual things and things that I would categorize as legit being evil. But if you read books that are distinctly Christian in that category, your children will be blessed. They will be blessed.
And I'll add to that, which is great. I love what you just said, Jen. C.S. Lewis got a lot of questions about this topic,
Mhm.
whether it was appropriate for children to read fantasy. And he stated this. This was in a letter in a response to somebody that
Mm,
asked that question. He said, since it is so likely that children will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights and
mhm,
heroic courage.
mhm.
Let there be wicked kings and beheadings, battles and dungeons, giants and dragons, and let villains be soundly killed at the end of the book. Lewis continues, nothing will persuade me that this causes an ordinary child any kind or degree of fear beyond what it wants and needs to fear.
Yep, that's good.
So I'll just summarize this by saying the parent who says, I we can't read books that have this kind of stuff in them, I would say, can you read the Bible, the
Yeah,
greatest book to your
totally.
children? Because when we open up the Bible, it's filled with death and blood and
Magic.
sex
Yeah,
and magic
yeah,
and evil and what that does, back to one of our original points, it tells the reader, I'm reading something that is authentic and it is true
yeah,
for my knowledge of the world. It's actually one of death and violence and pain and adventure and courage and cowards and good and evil. And so these things are good for kids to read when they're the appropriate kinds
yeah,
of books. And so to withhold that is to give our children a false impression of the world that simply doesn't exist. And
yeah,
I think what Lewis is getting at here, it actually prepares a child for the battles that he or she will face in the world. That's part of what fantasy does. And
yeah,
so giving our kids courage and braveness in these hard times it's a great thing.
yeah,
So that's part of what fantasy does. Reading is a doorway into all of learning, and reading great books is an incredible tool that
mhm,
parents and grandparents can use to help kids grow up into maturity in Jesus Christ, develop a biblical worldview. So, give great books as gifts, fill your home with the best books, leave them all around the house, just like Jen encouraged. Children will see them, they will pick them up, they'll start reading. Let children start with easy books and ditch books that they don't like. Make reading enjoyable. Let kids see you reading. And if you don't know how to do a read aloud, start with an audiobook, a great one. Pay attention to the authors and the publishers that you love because they'll lead you to more books, great books.
mhm.
Chances are you'll love more by that author or that publisher. Choose a great book and read it aloud to your family. I mean, like, we still have a good chunk of summer left.
Yeah,
So, and you should have more time during the summer than during the school year. So, if you can't read one now, then, you make it a priority now.
yeah.
That's the point. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say we can transition to our segment. What are you
What are you
reading?
reading?
But our segment, "What are you reading?" For my portion of that kind of stems from what you were just saying. Like, if you're not sure what to do, and what can you do to like get your kids reading over the summer? So, you want me to go
What?
first?
Yeah, you tell. What are
Okay.
you? What did you do this summer? This is part of what are you
I
reading?
should have brought the flyer. Okay, so I made flyers. So this summer, one of the things that I did with our kids is I started summer book club. And so I made like flyers, invitations, and I put them all over the house. And I've like wrote their
Uh,
names on each of them. I taped them on their bedroom doors, and it was like you are invited to summer book club. And so I put like the date, and the name of the book on it. And everybody said they wanted to be a part of summer book club. And so basically all it is
Did
I'm
they have a choice?
no, they had a choice.
Okay,
But
all right.
the thing that really drew them into my summer book club was that the location where our book club meets is we meet at Dairy Queen. And
Smart mom.
so if you're like not from the Midwest and you don't have Dairy Queen,
Everybody has Dairy
do they have
Queen.
Dairy Queen nationwide?
Yeah, they have it in other countries too.
Stop it. It's like a wow, international. So
Yeah.
our book club meets at Dairy Queen, and
Do they have McDonald's
the
in other
host of the
states?
dairy or
Sorry.
the host of the book club, who is myself, provides complimentary menu items from the Dairy Queen that they can choose. So our first and then I put invitations all over the house, and I made them circle, like, "Will you be there? Yes
Good
or
idea.
no?" It was very fun. It was highly anticipated, our first
So
meeting.
what was the first
So,
book in your
the
book
first book
club?
that we read was God's Smuggler by Brother Andrew. Now, it's a story about if this has sold over 10,000,000 copies.
Mm.
I chose it. I had actually turned out that this was the second time that I'd read it. So it's about Brother Andrew. He has a real last name, which is like Vandelar or something. Anyways, I don't remember his actual last name. We looked it up because we said it out loud at book club like 14 times. Anyways, the pronunciation. And he was a smuggler. He smuggled Bibles into communist countries. And so he has a really amazing story. So I facilitated. I thought this would be a great book
We
for
could use
all of
him
our
in
kids.
Minnesota.
We could use him.
Like
Smuggle Bibles
Minneapolis,
in.
smuggle
Yeah, I know,
Minneapolis.
right?
We got communism growing there.
So I just bought copies of this for all the kids. I passed it out. I was like, "Read it as far as you can, and then we'll discuss." So we just, like, went around. Um, I love Brother
Out
Andrew.
of 10 for
Book club,
magic,
magic, and
what would you
yes,
give it?
the kids we all rated the book. Some of the kids loved it, some of the kids were like, "Wah, wah." I think all around this book got, like, a 7
Yeah, that's about
out
right.
of 10. So, if you wanna read it, Brother Andrew seems like a great guy. Um, our kids are like avid readers, and only one of our kids actually finished the book, which maybe says something about the writing style because it's not hard
They
to
read about
read.
half of it and were like, "I got the
They were
gist."
like, "I understand."
Yeah.
So, anyways, God's Mother book club.
All right, I have 4 books I read.
Wow,
It's
okay.
summer, so I got a little extra time. So sometimes I read fun books. I read Once in the Saddle,
Okay.
which is the Cowboys frontier from the late 1800s.
Okay.
That was like all about cowboys and the Midwest
Oh,
partially. So that was fun.
okay.
Um, okay, I'll give it to somebody if they want it because
Okay.
I don't need to keep it now that I've read it. Let's see. I just finished this morning and this was great. I would say 10 out of a 10
Wow.
great. Called Dumbing Us Down by John Taylor Gatto, Gatto, The Hidden Curriculum of Compulsory Schooling. Kind of walks through the trouble
Mm,
with traditional K through 12, Monday through Friday schooling. What he would say is centralized control of education has essentially killed education. That you need, then it needs to be local, it needs to be free, it needs to be home driven.
what?
Amazing. He won the Teacher of the Year in New York, and great.
Amazing that he won that award. Guarantee they would never give them that award again.
His talk
Guarantee.
when he won the award, his talk was like all the problems with education.
They would run him out of
He was
town.
a bold man. Yeah, he probably wouldn't win now. That was a fantastic book. I think that's helpful for even if you're not in education, just as if you're a pastor or a parent, just thinking about how you disciple, how you educate. Fantastic. I'm about halfway through this book right now. Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives Defining America's School Curriculum. Fantastic. And I'll just read you, this is current right now. I'll read you what this one's about. Lie number one: brutal true slavery was virtually unique to America and the West. Lie number two: the Red Scare was a moral panic that caught no commies. That there was communism happening in the country, and there's a resurgence, of course, right now, big time.
Mhm.
Lie number three: Native Americans were peaceful people who spent all day dancing. Nice.
Dancing? Nobody spends all day dancing, even dancers.
Noble savages. And the lie number four: hippies were the good guys. The sexual revolution was great for women, and the Vietnam War was unpopular and pointless. Lie number five: the founders counted slaves as three-fifths of a person, and the only victims of lynchings were black. Lie number six: European colonialism was empirically a no good, terrible, very bad thing. Lie number seven: Americans' use of nukes to end the World War II was evil and unjustified. Um, there's a couple on white flight and racism ruining the
Flip to
South.
the back. Let me see.
Wilfred Riley.
All right. He is a person of color.
Yeah. Yes, he is. He's a person of color. Fantastic book. Especially if you've got a child in the public school system, this is the stuff they are being taught
Yeah.
in all of the classrooms right now. Literally fantastic. Highly recommend, 10 out of 10. And then the last one was one I actually wrote an endorsement for that I just got in the mail from the individual, Lawson Murray. He's a Canadian. And he wrote a book called Christian Grandparenting: Leaving a Lasting Legacy. So, our friends across the border in Canada, I think Lawson is around the Toronto area, lives in that area. And this is just a helpful book on kind of the basics
Okay.
of grandparenting. I'll read you my endorsement since I
Oh,
just see I
okay.
had. Um, Christian grandparenting is saturated in the Bible, centered on the gospel, filled with practical guidance to help you pass on a heritage of faith to your family, and is a must read for anyone who is serious about
That's a
grandparenting.
great endorsement.
Helpful book.
Good job.
Yeah,
Good
so
job.
that's good.
I also read Theo of Golden.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I
Forgot
didn't
about
bring
that
it up,
one.
but Theo of Golden.
And
I liked it. I would recommend it.
I've heard some people say that there's no way you can't like that book if you've read it.
You cannot like it if you quit. If you quit reading it, because I almost quit because it gets so slow in the middle. I almost quit. So if you quit, you'd hate it. But if you read it all the way to the end, you'll love it.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of books this round.
We've been heavy readers.
Yeah.
I have a couple books that I'm reading, starting right now, too. I said I was only reading fiction this summer, but I have the next kids' book club book that I'm going to start, which is a fiction book. I won't reveal it here yet so that I can wait until it's been revealed to them.
If you want to be part of Jen's book club, you can maybe read along with them.
You could.
Yeah.
You could read along with my book club, but it's
Book club.
yeah. And you could host your own meeting at a local Dairy Queen near you.
And if you're in Minnesota, we could tell you what Dairy Queen you could crash the
Dairy
party.
Queen should sponsor us for this shout out.
Dairy Queen. Free blizzards. There we go.
Anyways, there.
All right. Well, I think that does it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
We're honored to partner with the Addisons, and today I want to point you toward their podcast. It's called Culture Proof, and they use a biblical approach to view current events, family, politics, and more. What makes it unique is their biblical perspective. They take the truth from the Bible and they apply it to issues that we're facing today. They don't just discuss problems, they provide practical things that we can do to make a difference and raise our children to follow Christ. Subscribe today so that you and your family can be culture proof. Thank you for listening to the Gospel Shape Family Podcast. Please share this episode and give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts.